And we are live. Let's give it a couple of seconds here and see who joins us. Boss Bounty, Tim, how are you doing today?
Really good, mate. You?
I'm doing great. Let's give it a couple of seconds. Make sure we got some folks watching, and we'll dig right in.
Yeah.
So you're up. It's 10 o'clock your time. It's about 4 o'clock my time. I go to bed at like 8:30 when I'm allowed to by my wife. So the thought of staying up till 10 o'clock, no, thank you.
Yeah, but I know from your Instagram post that you're up at like 4 in the morning. So
I am. I sneak up early and I start trolling eBay for deals. We got 8 people watching. Let's go ahead and get started. This is Action Figure Grader. I want to thank for those who are watching so far. I am joined today by none other than the YouTube sensation Boss Bounty. Tim, thank you so much for agreeing to be on my Peon channel. I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm really well, mate. That makes me laugh, mate. Don't be silly. Your channel's one of my favorite channels, mate. So I don't know what's taking you so long, to be honest.
Well, most folks don't really care about what I have to talk about, and it's okay. You know, it's fine. I just do it to stay out of trouble more than anything. So we got a lot of great folks watching so far. TCG and Gerard and Blacked Out Ewoks, Lee. Thank you guys all for Sean Solo. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Anyway, I wanted to dig in. This is basically gonna, for those watching, this is gonna be about an hour, maybe a little less, depending on how it's going. I just wanted to have you on the channel to talk about a range of topics. But at first, Tim, most of the folks who are watching, they know you well. But for those for the 0.01% watching right now that maybe don't know you or don't know your channel, can you give us a little bit of your background? How you got started collecting, what you like to collect, things like that.
Yeah, so predominantly Star Wars I collect, modern and vintage, loose and carded. I'm not really, I do both. How did I get started? Well, in collecting, been collecting years, really. I think what started it for me was when eBay came around. So I've had my eBay account maybe 20 years, I think it is now. And I remember buying a load of stuff off there from America. Brian's Toys was always on there. I think he's still going, Brian's Toys.
He is.
So I used to get a load of stuff which I thought was cheap back then, because it just seemed to be cheaper in the US. So I was buying a lot of stuff, but then I kind of got out of collecting a bit, and I sold a lot of it when I got married and stuff and had children and what have you. So I've probably been collecting again for maybe 4 or 5 years. And I was never really a massive YouTube watcher. I mean, I know my friend Nick, Only One Kenobi, he always talks about these channels that have been around for years. And I'm sorry, I'm a bit sort of naive to it, because I never really watched YouTube. What got me into YouTube was actually my son. He used to watch, loads of YouTubers that used to open toys and stuff. He used to love all that. There's one famous little kid, I can't remember his name now, but he's got his own toy line now, And so yeah, I basically just thought, you know what, I'm going to give that a go, and I'm just going to talk about my Star Wars stuff, basically. And that's all it was. It's about three years ago now. Yeah, that's it.
And look at you now. You're a worldwide phenomenon. So, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your collecting. It's going to be kind of a random hodgepodge of questions here, but I just enjoy asking these for anyone on this kind of. I have a series that I'm starting now. Obviously, you're number 2, but basically, it's a collector spotlight, and we just like to hear about what people are collecting. So, tell us a little bit about your favorite figures and why, what your focus areas are, things like that.
So I'd probably say the majority of my collection is the modern vintage collection. I also do have a fair bit of vintage, I guess, nowhere near as much as some people, but as I said, from years back I used to have a bit of it, and I kind of sold it on. So I'm slowly trying to get it back now. So I've got maybe half of the loose run, I guess, and probably about 25 mocks, maybe something like that, mint on cards. And I'm always, I'm always looking for I'm always looking for a bargain. But then again, like sometimes I'm looking for something like a specific thing, and then I just go completely off track, and I end up just buying
Oh,
something
me
else.
too.
So.
Me too.
It's quite annoying, really. I mean, me and my Twitter buddies, we have our like top 10 things for the year, and then at the end of the year, we look at which ones we've crossed off. And you know, for me, like Mark, my mate Mark, he's like crossed off 8 or 9 of his 10, and there's me with 2.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Random.
Yeah, I mean, here we are at the end of 2020, and I always at the beginning of each year, I put together a wish list of what I'd like to collect that year, and I looked at my list for this year, and I think I got 3 out of like the 10 that I wanted. And I blame you, honestly, because I was never a modern Star Wars collector, really, other than maybe some prototypes and things like that. And then next thing you know, I'm whole hog into the vintage collection after watching your channel, Only One Kenobi, Blacked Out Ewoks, folks like that on YouTube who have these amazing modern items and they dig into detail. And me personally, I never would have gotten into some of these modern items if not for your channel and those others. So I guess maybe tell us a little bit about your early start with the vintage collection and what drew you to it.
So I remember the vintage collection from back in 2010. I remember seeing them in the shops and stuff, but at that point I was like, as I say, I was out of collecting. I think I got married in 2009. No, I didn't. I had my first child in 2009. I got married in 2007. So we're just like buying a house at that point and moving in, and everything was, you're bringing up young children. It's expensive. So I picked up a couple of them. I remember picking up the Luke Skywalker lightsaber construction. I remember seeing those from the Blu-ray release. So I had a few of them, but nothing like what I've got now. It's really my channel. So in the last 3 years, I've just sort of obviously I started my channel kind of when the vintage collection came back, and I thought this would be a good thing to do. And obviously I thought, right, well now I want to go back and get all the ones that I haven't got, and I still haven't got them all. I mean, I must be missing I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 from the run. But it's a great line to collect because, it's a cheaper way of having that sort of nostalgic vintage card, and I supplement with actual vintage as well,
Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned that you're missing a few. Now that we're heading into 2021, what do you kind of view as some must pick up items or would like to pick up items for next year?
Well, in terms of stuff that's coming, or that's
anything. It could be anything. Just stuff that's on your wish list.
Well, I'm at that point now where I want to get the exclusives that I haven't got. So next year I will be getting Jar Jar in Carbonite, for example. I think that's the San Diego Comic Con 2012 or 13, maybe. And then you got the Death Star playset. Or set from 2011, I think it was, the Revenge cards, and you get the 2 mini cards in there, which I've never really been overly bothered about, but this is where it's your fault because because when I get Jar Jar and when I get those 2 mini cards, they're not going to go on the wall, they're going to be graded. So
well, no, all right. You brought up grading. I tried to stay away from it. I tried to tiptoe around that because it's a very divisive subject. But I want to dig into that just for a second. I know you're going to be putting out a video at some point on your experience with grading.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd like to hear what you have to say about the grading process. And obviously I'm a graded item collector, but I'd just love to hear your thoughts on the process in general. Just what you think about the graded figure industry, pluses, minuses, anything you want to talk about there.
I think the thing that annoys me the most is that somebody will get a perfectly good loose figure that's obviously mint, and that they'll buy it off one of the Facebook groups or whatever, and then they'll grade it purely to like put a third of its value on the end of it, So, for example, They might get a really good Farm Boy Luke for £70, get it graded and it comes back with an 85 and it's all of a sudden worth 150 or whatever, you know.
Right.
So
or 300.
there is that part. I think I even saw somebody comment. I can't remember whether I saw the comment. It was on maybe on one of my videos, and it was talking about grading, and they were saying, actually, it's somebody's video on YouTube, and they're basically saying that is how they make money. You know, that's what they do. They buy stuff, get it graded, and then sell it on. So there's that part of it. But what I guess the part of it that I do like is that it guarantees authenticity, I guess, if you're buying something that's already graded. So there's that. But I think it's like an addictive thing as well. So, you know, I've only got the one thing graded, but like I couldn't wait for it to get back, and I couldn't wait to see what score it got, you know. So there's that part of it. And when I send off those 4 or 5 items that I'm going to be sending off, you know, it's going to be a long, like 10 weeks or 12 weeks because of COVID, you know, waiting for those to come back. And also I'm going to be getting just some stupid things graded just for the hell of it, you know. So like, you know, why would anyone
talking to the right person? You're talking to the right person about.
Why would anyone get this graded? Yeah, I know you get all the new ones graded, but I just think this is such a cool figure that I think it needs to be sort of encapsulated in time and given a good 90 or whatever, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you can see back here my miscard and all the flack I took on some of the groups about that miscard, and you know, something like that I think is worth grading. I definitely go overboard with it. We all know this, but I look forward to your video on that process, because I think it's interesting for to hear someone else's perspective that is maybe newer to it, or you know, has a different outlook to it than I do. And there's been other folks like Toy Polloy and others that have done really nice videos about that. But I just wanted to touch base on that.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
I've seen the Toy Polloy video where he actually gets stuff regraded, doesn't he? So he said he gets stuff because he just.
Which I've done too. I've done that as well.
Yeah, and I think in the main they came back the same. I think there's one that was slightly off, maybe a He-Man figure or something. But my video, what I'm going to do is it's just sort of like more of an educational piece about, you know, first of all, I'm going to have the items that I'm going to be sending, and then it's going to be a screen share of the UKG website and how you navigate that, because it can be a bit clunky, you know, how you should get to send it off. And because you get a lot of questions about, you know, if you send it in an acrylic case, will they send you the acrylic case back and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Sure.
Because obviously they'll use their own case for the grading thing, you know. So yeah, obviously that video won't drop for another 12 weeks because I've got to wait in the same video. I want to say, and now it's 12 weeks later, and here's all the items, you know.
Right. No, that's going to be a great video. I look forward to seeing that. But you know, you do mention the flippers, and to get away a little bit from grading and to just talk about collecting in general. What are some of the other kind of negatives or things that you like that you wish were different about Star Wars collecting? It doesn't have to be graded. I'm just, you know, in general.
Oh man, there's quite a few things. Something that annoyed me recently is like reverse price bashing, and this happened in a group. I'm not going to say which group, but that there was some items that went up for sale, and loads of people steamed in saying you've got those far too cheap after people had claimed them, right?
Right.
And I don't ever want people to get ripped off, of course, but I thought that the majority of the things that they were selling were fair prices. And I think there's like a subconscious thing from dealers to keep the prices high. I don't want to say that they're doing it on purpose, or, you know, but essentially if something's worth £90 and someone sells it for 70, then the person that buys that's getting a good deal, you know, and that's a nice sale, collector to collector, you know. But then when someone wades in and says, oh, that's too cheap, you know, you could have got more for that or whatever, you know, you can bet your bottom dollar in a couple of weeks that person's selling something similar and they want 90 for it, you know.
Right.
So that annoys me a little bit. And I've seen that more and more because obviously the groups have got rules about price bashing. So if someone's got something way too expensive, you're not allowed to wade in and go, you know, go and put it on eBay if you want that kind of money for it or whatever.
Right. Right.
So
that's a good point. And my only comment on that is that I tend to agree pretty strongly about that. I know that when I've sold things, oftentimes I've either sold at a loss just to get it out of my space, but or I priced it what I consider to be pretty fair. And but there is a certain segment of the collecting community, no matter what it is, whether it's modern or vintage, that you'll see an item sell to him, and then a few weeks later, that's the exact same one that now it's on eBay and it's for 40% more. So I understand it and agree pretty hard.
I saw on it was a couple of years ago now on one of the groups, someone sold a X-Wing Luke pilot 2021 back or something, and really nice condition or wherever. They put it on for a ridiculously low price, and obviously the first person that snapped it up, everyone else got really jealous, going, "That's well too cheap, man. That's well too cheap. What are you doing?" Blah 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 blah. But then the guy that was selling is an experienced seller. I've seen him on the groups, all the different groups, and then he just replied saying, "I just wanted to give a collector a really good deal." And I just think it's almost like a random act of kindness,
right?
So maybe there's a bit of greed involved creeping in, possibly. I don't know, but times are tough for some people. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think my only other comment about Star Wars collecting is and I mentioned this in my video for Collector Archive Services about bootlegs, that it can be cliquish. There can be a lot of ego, and there can be a lot of arrogance, and old guard versus new guard. And what I like about the bootleg community is that there's not so much of that. And people are willing to help and educate people. And I wish there was more of that across whatever lines you're collecting. But that's just something else that I've noticed.
Some of the one particular group, and I will say their name actually. It's Dark Side Alliance, Gaz and Terry.
Oh, great guys.
Sometimes they do a deal or no deal, and somebody might to try and get the item, they might try and blow everyone away and just go, I don't know, £300, and then they reply saying
$250.
Too much. I only wanted.
I've seen that.
For it. And that's a bit of class,
Yep. So, there's not enough of that. I like that, and I've done that before too with Chris, who's watching right now. He'll know. We started arguing about an item he wanted from me, and he was saying this amount, and I was like, no, that's too much. I'm sorry. So there's not enough of that, I feel like, in the collecting community. But Blacked Out Ewoks mentioned the droid proofs. There were some droid proofs that it just got really ugly. I don't know if you remember that whole fiasco, but I mean, people undercutting each other and telling them you're selling them too cheap and backdoor dealing, all that kind of stuff. It's sad. But let's get something. Hey, Tim, let's get to something more positive and to the bread and butter. And a lot of your fans are watching because of this. Let's talk about the vintage collection. I want to talk about a couple of things. I first want to start with the positives. Where do you view, in the U.S., for example, every year the President of the United States gives a State of the Union. I want Tim's State of the Union for the vintage collection line. Where do you think we are right now?
We're in a better place than we were 9 months ago, I think. I do think 2020 in the main has been pretty poor. The early signs of what come.
But what? Just tell me why, though. Dig in a little bit.
Well, for me, it started that we obviously got the first wave really late in the year. I think it was April was the Mandalorian wave, and it looked at that point like there was only 3 waves scheduled for that year, and one of those was a repack wave. And that's the first year also that I went to New York Toy Fair. I flew out there on my own, because I was really sort of up for seeing what was going to get revealed, and it was a pretty poor event. It was great to be there and everything, but what got revealed for the Live Vintage collection, because it is in the year of the 40th anniversary for the Empire Strikes Back, and the Black Series got loads of stuff. A lot of it was repacks on those cards. But whatever, they still got a lot celebrating the anniversary, and we literally just got nothing. And then I think towards the end of the year's got a lot better. We've got a lot of stuff towards the end, and a lot of stuff announced. but I still think there could be a lot more.
Well, you know, I think on that note, I'm wondering what your thoughts are about Hasbro's reaction to the Razor Crest HasLab project and the massive backers that they got, the massive backer total that they ended up with for the Razor Crest. Do you think that was an eye opener for them?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, first of all, they acknowledged the campaign that we ran in sort of because I got really annoyed about one reveal of, I think it was Luke's Stormtrooper, and I got really annoyed that that's all we got on this particular reveal day. I can't even remember what day, you know, what the occasion was, but you know, the Black Series got a whole host of reveals, and we got this one repacked figure from that 3-pack. So I got on my high horse about it, and I started the whole back TVC thing and got communicate with Bantha Skull, and they did all the whole petition and everything, and we got recognition from Hasbro for that, and they said then that we were going to get more emphasis put into the vintage collection. But then I think the Razor Crest has just reaffirmed that even more, because I think they were only expecting 10,000 at the max, I think, because they were just judging it on what the barge got, you know. So they set the first thing at 6,000 to back it, and I think they were hoping for 10. But of course, as we know, the Mandalorian is just so popular, even just in the mainstream now. It's brought Star Wars back to the mainstream. You know, people have forgotten about the whatever you think about the sequel trilogy. People have kind of put that behind them now, and it's just all about the Mandalorian and all these new shows that they've announced. And if those new shows can be of the quality of the Mandalorian, then it's super bright, isn't it, for Star Wars in general? And then hopefully the product will follow.
Well, I've got a couple of follow-up questions, but before I do, GeForce Racing 20 asked this, and I posted it up. And this is something that Blue Harvest has mentioned. It's something you know, you probably have mentioned. When I go out, I am a target market for Hasbro. I've got disposable income. I love buying them. I would buy 20 figures for my son, but I go out to Walmarts, I go to Targets, I go, you know, wherever to try and find TBC products, and even locally anyway, even Black Series stuff. And there's nothing there. It is a ghost town. It's 2 weeks before Christmas or less. I just went out yesterday to Walmart. They had 2 figures total. I'm not talking about 2 figures of, you know, 10 copies of each. They had 2 figures total. And this has been going on for weeks now. And so I feel like their distribution and logistics, and it might be COVID related, admittedly, but what is your experience there in the UK? Because you might have a totally different experience there, but at least locally here, we got nothing.
We don't have a problem because we've now got Hasbro UK, which basically distributes to all of the online retailers, and we've been used to ordering everything online for years now. We lost Toys R Us. We haven't really had a sort of chain of toy stores. You got Smiths, I suppose, but then again, you know, some of the supermarkets used to stock. I remember them having the small Black Series 3.75 figures. But from what I can tell about the US, and this is, you know, I get this from some of the guys I speak to, is that it all goes back to the first wave of the vintage collection when it came back, and the fact that 5 of the 6 figures in the wave were repacked from that 3.75-inch Black Series line. So you had those on clearance in the red and black boxes, and then the exact same figure next to them on the vintage collection. And the character choices weren't that great either.
Right.
So because they hung around on the pegs for ages, the retail stores just stopped ordering it, because I think you work on SKU numbers, SKU numbers, or whatever. So they just stopped ordering against that SKU. And now, you know, so you guys missed so many waves, but I think it's starting to get better. I think they're starting to
absolutely better. It is.
Yeah,
it's online, but at retail it's non-existent here. But online, I feel like it has for the most part gotten a lot better. With US distributors,
some places, some Targets and Walmarts. I know, you know, the most recent wave, those dropped early. You know, so I was super jealous because I was thinking, oh, you know, I've got to wait for the actual release date over here. But then people are just finding them in Targets and Walmarts and what have you. I think I think they don't order enough cases. Maybe that's the problem, because as soon as one collector goes in, they clear it out.
Right.
But yeah, it's just I think it all goes back to that wave, and I think if they'd brought back the vintage collection with like a really solid wave of big name characters that everyone wants. So, for example, that new Boba Fett that we're getting next year, if they brought back the wave with figures like that, then they would have just sold thousands of them, and then the line would have flourished.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's a good point. I want to ask this. This is another question that's sort of related, but okay. So I watched your video about Mando Mondays or whatever, and we see that Hasbro announces a 6-inch Black Series Bo-Katan. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. And I guess from my perspective, it's cool to see them very quickly, bringing out a character that's current and things like that. But what is there a technical issue about their ability to produce these figures for both the Black Series and the Vintage Collection simultaneously? It feels like Black Series always gets their stuff first. Is it higher profitability? Is it just because of R&D to get it scaled properly to 3 3/4? It just seems strange to me.
I think first of all, it costs pretty much the same for them to produce a 3 3/4 inch figure as it does a Black Series figure. There's not much in it, and then you've got the higher retail price on the Black Series figures. So it's, from a business point of view, you can understand that. The thing is, I think people have to realize about the Black Series is that they're playing catch up, so that they don't already have the range of characters that 3 3/4 inch does. So when the Black Series brings characters out, it's always pretty much the main characters and troopers and repaints of troopers. It's very rare that you see like Cantina aliens and that kind of thing. That they're starting to dabble in that. But if you think about like the 96 figures, how many they've still got to do for those. I mean, the Vintage Collection's missing, I don't know, 10 of them or whatever, maybe more. The Black Series is missing far more than that. But they've got, 7 Kylo Rens. Now, I don't want 7 Kylo Rens. I just need the 1 Kylo Ren and maybe one without his helmet off. But I don't need 7 of them, And the Black Series has got 7 of them. So, and you can't just scale. You can't just get a 6-inch mold and go, right, we're going to scale it down. It doesn't work like that. They've talked about this before, that sometimes 3.75-inch figures have different proportions in general. So, just scaling down the mold doesn't always work well,
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is I would love to, I'm obviously not privy to being, within Hasbro's operations department or finance department. I would be curious to know what the volume of sales for the exact same figure, let's say Boba Fett, at 6-inch versus the VCO9 or whatever Boba Fett, what the volume looks like. Does the volume of the Vintage Collection sales make up for the profitability of the Black Series? And I don't know the answer to that. It's just a question I bounce around in my mind, because it just seems so strange to me that they wouldn't cater maybe a little bit more to the TVC collectors.
The thing is, it's a difficult one because there's no level playing field to start with. So, because they're mass in retail, aren't they, Black Series? So you can't compare, because Black Series is going to win every time because it's in retail, point of purchase and kind of like, and it's gone. So whereas they've got cases and cases and cases of Black Series. Now, if they could change that and have a level playing field, then you could measure it. What I would say is that, and this is just me guessing, I guess, is that most people that buy Black Series are either openers or they're boxed. So they buy one and they either keep it in the box, or they're the sort of person that doesn't care about the box. They'll throw it away, and then they'll put it on the shelf, unless it's a trooper or something and they want like a mini army of them or whatever. Whereas I would suggest that the majority of Vintage Collection figures are at the minimum going to buy 2, because they want one loose and they want one carded. And they're smaller figures. So if you do want an army of stormtroopers, for example, you could buy 50 of them and it'd take up as much space as 10 Black Series. So
Right.
so I think it's an unfair starting point to compare the two, purely because of the volumes that are in real retail.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great point. What do you expect for 2021 now that the Mandalorian's proven a massive hit that's kind of crossed over into pop culture in general? What are your expectations from Hasbro in 2021? Obviously, Disney's whole hog on new shows and things like that. But do you think we'll see a pretty major, instead of having repacks like we are in April, March or April of next year, are we going to see a lot more kind of original figures, Mandalorian related or not? Just because of the simple popularity now of Star Wars in general.
Well, I think yes and no. So I think next year will be better than this year. We'll have, I think, we're up to about 6 waves next year, and maybe one or two of those are going to be the repack waves. Maybe 5 waves of actual new figures, and some of those aren't always new figures. You might get 2 or 3 new figures and then a repaint or something. So for example, We're getting Snaggletooth in a wave. Then he's a previous figure, but we need him. We've always needed that card back, so I'm happy with that.
Absolutely.
They might bring out the Mortar Trooper from that episode with Boba Fett because it's an easy paint of the Incinerator Trooper. It's just orange. They'll do that for the Black Series as well. But I would suggest that the fact that it takes 12 to 18 months from concept to shelf, that we probably won't see the fruits of them promising to do more because of the campaign and them promising to do more because of the Razor Crest. We won't see that until 2022.
Right.
So I think next year's already penciled in. They know what's coming out. Yeah. And if they want, if people start kicking off and they want to throw something out, they might do a bit like they did with the carbonized Mando figures. It's like we've got no new molds, we've got nothing to give them. Let's just give them a wave of repaints just to stave them off for a little bit until we can give them something new.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in fairness, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but in fairness, this latest wave with the Rogue One Vader, the Rex, and I know the Rex is a repack for the most part, or, not the Rex that folks want, but I looked at that wave and I'm like, wow, if we can get one of those every 3 months, I would be a happy camper, Yeah. And I know, I'm obviously a novice to the vintage collection line, but I looked at that wave and it's just an awesome wave, right?
Yeah.
So
I think there's an element of the as I said about Star Wars, sort of, losing a few people and what have you. That it's no secret that the sequel trilogy split the fans, and people probably fell out of love of Star Wars a little bit. And now the Mandalorian's a massive hit. I think Hasbro and loads of other toy companies got burnt by sales of the Last Jedi figures. Then that knocked onto the Solo figures. There's hardly any product for the Rise of Skywalker. So forget the Mandalorian for a minute. The Rise of Skywalker got hardly anything because they just didn't want to take the risk. They probably wanted to see if the film's going to be a hit, if it's going to rectify the damage that had been done. Yeah. What's happened is it's the Mandalorian that's done that, and that's why there was no product at the start, because I think it's just too much of a risk. They've had to wait to see if it's, and now it is. I think we can expect a lot, but it will take time.
Well, and on that note, it's a great point about the turnaround times, but and the risk reward ratio that they're looking at. But I'll be curious about is with Disney's new show releases, that they've announced, what kind of retail product will we see at launch for those shows versus, the Mandalorian? I'd be curious to see whether Hasbro dips their toe a little bit more aggressively up front.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be that you used to get a lot, the Force. I think even the Force Awakens, we got a load of 5POA figures, pretty much the whole line, as the film dropped. But we didn't have Luke because Hasbro didn't know about Luke, and then when the reveal of Luke happened, they had to really get their skates on to give us some Luke. That's the same exactly thing happened with the child. So the Mandalorian, they may have known about some of the characters and figures in the Mandalorian, but they did not know about the child. And that's why it took them so long to give us the Black Series version of the child. And to be honest, they turned that one around pretty damn quick, really.
Yeah, they did.
But it's only a small diddy figure. So when I look at my Mandalorian lineup, we've got we've probably got about 8 or 9 now, I think, haven't we?
That sounds about right. Plus a couple of vehicles and things like that. So
yeah, I mean, obviously we've got three different Mandos. The Incinerator Trooper's the same mold as the Remnant Stormtrooper. You've got Karajin and Mandalorian. The only 2 that we're really missing is probably IG-11 and Queel, I would say, from the first series. There's a couple of other characters that you would love, and 10 years ago you could probably expect, but it's not 2010 anymore. It's never, and I don't think it will be unless all of these shows really take off like the Mandalorian has. Then they'll have no choice but to create God knows how much.
Yeah, I mean, my dream scenario is that for the characters that are known for these new shows, I haven't looked closely as to when they're actually going to start launching those shows. I'm assuming towards the end of next year. My dream scenario would be for Hasbro to pick those characters that we know are in the show based on the trailers, and have 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, have a wave for each one of those shows as they launch. I think it's wishful thinking, but it would be interesting to see how those launches go versus obviously the Mandalorian, just to see whether they take some risks. But I think we beat a dead horse on that. All right, so let's get back to a couple of kind of fun questions here. What's the favorite item in your collection right now? Your overall, if you had to pick one right now.
Oh, it's a difficult one because I've got so many things that I like for different reasons, but I always go back to it's the Falcon, because for me, I always say this, I think it's the greatest toy ever made. The amount of time, and that is my childhood one, so the amount of playtime I had with that thing, and I'm still loving it now, right? God knows how many years later. It was robust. I've
got my childhood Falcon hanging up as well. I got it hanging up in midair with fishing wire. My wife was unimpressed. My wife was unimpressed with that, but I like it.
I mean, mine used to get smashed around and it survived, and toys these days can be easily broken and stuff, can't they? And it's the flagship ship from Star Wars. And yeah, it's got sentimental value for me. My brother bought it for me when I was like 7 or whatever, with his own money, and he's only like 4 years older than me, so I was 6 or 7 or something. I've kept it ever since. I've still got the box in the loft, although it's in a terrible state, the box. But yeah, it's got to be the Falcon. I said, yeah, if my house was burning down and I had to save one thing, it'd be the Falcon, even though it's not the most valuable.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure. And let's talk broadly about collecting in general. One thing that obviously I talked about, Blacked Out Ewoks talked about. We made videos the exact same day and didn't even know that we were both going to be talking about the same thing. But do you think that as our generation, you and I are about the same age, as our generation kind of ages and kind of stops collecting, let's say, where do you think collecting is going to be in 20 years? It seems like the next generation. There's your son, my son. They're exceptions easily. They're easily exceptions to the rule. They would much rather have a Star Wars collection than play Minecraft or flip on the iPad. But do you see it dying off?
Me and my Twitter buddies, we talk about this a lot, because when we look at the current prices, and this year the prices have gone up, whether that's because people have had more money and bored at home or whatever. It's been a weird year, isn't it?
Yes.
But yeah, we talk about this a lot, and we think that, is it a good time to sell, because what's your collection going to be worth to somebody in X amount of years? Will the people be around? I mean, we've seen today, rest in peace, Jeremy Bullock,
Yes. Yeah.
We're going to go that way eventually. I know it's a depressing thought, but is there going to be people around that care like we do about these things? And I don't know is the answer. I hope so. My son certainly will have it ingrained into him, and even recently, actually, he's been asking for vintage figures, which is like, why you love
Same. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. My buddy Chris sent a complete and really nice condition Luke Bespin to my son, and I was like, well, you could have given that to me too, but you know, I'll give it to him. And my son loves it. You know, it's his pride and joy now to have a vintage Kenner Luke Bespin. You know, and he's 8 years old. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's asked for a load of them for Christmas, and I was like, why do you want a vintage? It was Luke Bespin, actually, because I'm going to get around it by giving the retro collection one. But you know, why do you want that? Oh, I just like them. They're cool. You know, whereas a year ago it was like they must bend. You know, they must have the bendy knees. They must have the bend. And he loves both. You know, like me. And part of it is that he just likes what I like. You know, and he wants to just be with his dad or whatever, and that's cool. But I do think there's a genuine passion for it, and I hope it does carry on and it becomes like a hobby for him. I mean, he'll inherit everything that I have, you know?
Yeah, that's what I told my son. My son's like, you know, I'm probably going to keep a couple of yours, Dad, but I'm probably going to sell most of it. I was like, well, that's okay. You know, you can when you're 40 and I'm dead and I'm worm food, you can take my collection, sell it, and get that Ferrari that you've always wanted. Whatever you want to do. Hopefully you can. Probably more like a Honda Pilot. You know, that's what he'll be able to afford with it, but it's okay. Okay, all right. So
all depends how much it's worth to somebody, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of the fun. So I want to talk. We're hitting about 45 minutes now, and I want to talk to the extent you feel like talking about it. But it's something that I'm fascinated by, is the size of your channel and how you were able to generate such a great subscriber base. And I'd love to know, just in general, how did you grow your channel? This is for, you know, I'm obviously a peon and I've got a very small channel, but I love learning about how whatever business it is. It doesn't have to be YouTube. I'm just taking in general. When I meet somebody and they've got an amazing business or hobby or whatever, I love hearing about how they grew it. And I'd just love to hear a little bit of background about that.
I don't think I'm any type of expert, really. Honestly, I don't. You know, it's just I make videos that I think are good, and hopefully that means other people will like them as well. You know, there was points in the journey where I think it took off a little bit. You know, so I remember putting out a video. It's probably my best video at the time, which was about the release dates of the vintage collection for that coming year. So when, you know, and I think people like that because it's something that helps them. You know, it's something that's a lot of people in marketing talk about value. So if you add value to, you know, give somebody value, then they'll come back. So I think that's one thing that sort of helped. I don't really know, really. It's just I'm not, as I say, I'm not an expert. Obviously, I try and do all the sort of standard things right. You know, making sure your titles are good, making sure your thumbnails are good, making sure you've got a good description, replying to comments, things like that. But I guess if there's one piece of advice, I guess, that I could give, it sounds weird. I don't really like giving advice. But I always think, like, listen to your audience. So read your comments, and if someone's saying, oh, I'd love it if you did this, or it would be really cool if you did that, then do it. Because the chances are, if one person's bothered to comment, then there's other people that would want that as well. So just do it and see what happens. And I find it more difficult to do now because I get a lot of comments now, but previously I would respond to every single comment because I always thought, if they've taken their time out to actually bother to comment on your video, then the least you can do is reply to it. You know, just give your time as well. So,
well, I just want to tell you that your channel, Blacked Out Ewoks, is another one. You know, Blue Harvest. You guys, I really enjoy your content. It's totally different than mine, obviously, but that's why I love it. I get to learn about all of these modern releases and things that I would never own, like Blacked Out Ewoks has, and Blue Harvest. You guys really put out great content, and it's just it's very inspiring. So I want to mention that. I also want to say this: Read 5 Designs is watching right now. He has a fantastic book that is in the works.
Yeah,
please check them out, because they I don't know, I think they're what's the word? Their backing time period for their book is about up, but they have an amazing and it's just an amazing book. I encourage you guys to go check them out. It's a really incredible project they put together. I think it's really, I wanted to have you on because I think in general that my channel devolves a little bit too much into talking about grading and things like that, and I've learned so much about the vintage collection, the modern industry, and it's a fascinating subject for me because I just don't know about it. I'm a novice on it, and to hear kind of what's being released, what the kind of the pulse is with the modern collecting community. It's great for you and like Only One Kenobi, folks like that who really kind of cover that. So I really appreciate you being on today, Tim, and it's been a lot of fun. So
yeah, I appreciate it, man. Oh, and also I remember, I've watched Blacked Out Ewoks for a number, for a fairly long time now, at least 3 years, I think. And it was him that actually said, like, you should watch the Action Figure Grader channel. And so, props to Blacked Out Ewoks. But yeah, just like what you said there. I mean, like a year ago, I probably would never have sort of hunted down a graded item or bothered getting something graded. And you saying that it's my fault that I've got you into the modern vintage collection. It's your fault that I'm now, sort of wishing that I had this weird miscard or a funny looking Bossk or whatever. I mean,
there you go. You got that pig Bossk. He's ready for his jazzercise class. He's ready for his Jane Fonda jazzercise class in 1985.
and also, if anyone's watching that watches my channel, I don't know how many people are watching at the moment, but
35. We got 35 on.
35, right. So if anyone's watching that watches my channel, you should subscribe to John's channel, the Action Figure Grader, because he knows a lot. He knows a lot about grading. He knows a lot about vintage Star Wars. He knows a lot about variants, and without sort of kissing each other, I watch all your videos. Every time you post something, I watch it, and I watch the whole lot, and I'm always educated by it. So, and I think other people will be too.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. We all have our niches, and I know that I've really learned a lot today, and it's just been a great discussion. For everyone watching right now, thank you all for watching. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll be back soon.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you.